Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to share with you on this kind of tough topic. About a year ago, I had a conversation that changed me. I was in a room full of women, and I was the only one who was older than 19 years old. And by full, I should say there were about 5 of us. But we didn't come together to talk about sexual assault. We came together for a totally different purpose. But by the time we left, I'd found out that everyone else in the room had been raped. And a lot of them had been raped on our campus. This really surprised me because one of my first days at Westminster during orientation, somebody asked how much rape is happening on campus. And whoever was leading that presentation said, well, there's been 1 rape in the past decade. I was in a room that refuted that fact head on. And I was surprised because I didn't think I knew any survivors of sexual assault. So I started having similar conversations just in general for a little while. And I guess I haven't stopped. But I started talking to my friends and saying, I had this crazy conversation. Before too long, I found out that I was surrounded by rape victims. They were my close friends, they were my family members, and I just hadn't known before. And I was really angry that I hadn't known before. And I was angry that apparently no one at my school knew either. So I started doing some research. I picked up some books, I read some blogs, I did a variety of things, and eventually that led me to conducting my own study last summer through the honors program on sexual assault on college campuses, and specifically prevention techniques. Now, I looked at 40 schools of different sizes and different compositions, some religious, some not, some liberal arts, some not, all over the country. I was specifically looking to see what we were telling women about sexual assault and how to prevent it. I'm not going to share that with you tonight because I found something that was a little bit more shocking. I found that in my 40 school sample, only 15 of those schools addressed sexual assault on their website from a prevention standpoint. The rest of them treated it like an inevitability, like the girls on their campuses were going to get raped, so this is who you should call. That bothered me a lot. And I thought I'd made a mistake. I was new to research, so I started calling the schools, the ones that had 100 tips about how to prevent rape, and the ones who had 0. I stopped after 5 because out of the first 5, 4 of them had reported 0 sexual assault prevention tips. And when I called them, I called multiple offices. I called the Women's Center if they had one, admissions, campus patrol, their web designer, and I actually ended up on the phone with the vice president on one of these college campuses. And I was getting the same line. Well, we don't have stuff on our website because we don't have rape here. I was shocked. Schools without rape? The Center for Disease Control does a study annually. Right now, we have results out from 2012 that show that 19% of college females have either had an attempted sexual assault or have been raped while they've been on their college campus. These were students ranging between freshmen and seniors. So imagine how those numbers would change if we only asked the 4th-year students. So why aren't these numbers matching up? Why do these schools think that they don't have a rape problem? I thought maybe they were lying to me and they were really suspicious. So there's actually a database online where every school is required to report how many rapes were reported on their campus. So here's what I found. I found that out of that sample, the highest number of rapes reported in the last 3 years was 31. A school of 59,000 undergrads reported 10 rapes per year about every year. That's less than 1%. On average, these 40 schools reported 7 rapes per year. Even for the school with the smallest population, with the highest group, it was only 2%. 2 and 19 aren't matching up. Why is this? I have a theory. So when you're researching rape, one of the things, especially if it's on college campuses, that you'll be asked over and over again is, where is the worst place? Doing the hospital response team, I'm often asked, where is the part of town I should not bring my daughters? I don't have an answer. With colleges, I was asked, which college has the biggest rape problem? Specifically, which college in Utah? has the biggest rape problem? None of the colleges in my study were from Utah. So I couldn't answer that question either. When people started to ask me that question, they weren't really disappointed when I didn't have an answer because they thought they knew. And everybody who gave me their answer picked one of two schools. The first one is the University of Utah, and they always cited the same reason. Because a few years back, there was someone who was notorious for groping students against their will on campus. To make it clear, that's one person assaulting a few students, not 19% of the student body. The other one that came up was BYU, and that was because BYU also had a famous rapist who was on their campus at a specific hill who was raping strangers. Again, this does not account for the 19% that is basically nationwide. That doesn't come with a caveat of Westminster is good and other colleges are bad. So, this is where I think the problem is. I think the problem is that as soon as we know about one rape or one rapist associated with a campus, we assume the campus is generally rapey. We assume that it's the unsafest place to send our children, to be there as a woman, to be there with our friends, and we hide from those places. One of the biggest things that can happen to enrollment for a college in a bad way, the way to knock your applications down, is to have one rape get into the media. So colleges actually have an incentive to make it very, very difficult for sexual assault victims to be able to present themselves to the faculty and say, I was raped on campus. They don't want to have to report those numbers because everyone else is reporting about 7 every 3 years. If any campus becomes the one that is honest and reports that 19% of their students were in some way sexually assaulted, they're going to become the rapiest campus in the country. So, we end up with a situation where the administration doesn't want to know, students don't know who to talk to, and parents are appalled if one gets out. But rape is happening on every campus in the country. Here's what I propose. I propose that we start asking about real sexual assault rates on our college campuses. I think it's time that we let our colleges know that they're not surprising us and they're not tricking us, and we know that as women especially, we have about a 1 in 5 chance of someone trying to rape us. Because if we tell them we know, then they can start being honest with us. And then we can tackle the problem. Because until we know what's going on, until we have the real numbers for Westminster, there's really nothing that our faculty and administration can do. But in the meantime, I have a couple of suggestions to make this transition easier. The first is that we get a confidential report form. I saw this at a couple of liberal arts colleges, and it's really, really effective in places like that. And that's because at Westminster, we all know someone who knows someone, and we have about 2 degrees of separation from pretty much everybody who breathes on this campus. So if I were to become the first person to go in and tell somebody that I was raped, how quickly do you think I would become the girl who cried rape on this campus? It would happen pretty fast. Everybody would be whispering as I walked through Shaw. Everybody would be wondering who I was going to accuse next. So what a confidential report form allows is for rape victims to report the crime without having to put their name on it. Now, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden anybody who's accused of rape is going to end up being kicked off campus, because their names don't have to go on the forms either. But instead, we'll then know how much sexual assault is happening here. If everybody can say when something happens that's weird, and then our administration can start to address it. The other thing I suggest is that we all get out of that bubble that I was in about a year ago. Start talking to your friends about sexual assault. And I don't mean asking, hey, have you ever been raped? Kind of a weird conversation. But instead, read the issues, look at articles, share them with your friends, and you'll be surprised with what you hear. When I did my rape recovery training, we spent 40 hours in 2 weeks staring at rape statistics. And we all thought that was the hardest part. Then they told us that just by doing the training, by posting one article, by letting our friends know that we would actually listen, that we would hear the rape stories of everyone in our lives. And I definitely have heard quite a few and helped quite a few people and made a support network while all of the places around us are catching up. But in the meantime, let's keep asking our colleges to be honest with us. And if you or someone you know has been a victim of sexual assault, please call the Rape Recovery 24-hour crisis line at 801-467-7273. And that's online too if you didn't have a pencil. Thank you so much.